So David, what are your thoughts on today?
Well, today we have to shift. The economic model and the energy model is unsustainable. And with the current COVID, we're seeing the public getting used to cleaner environments, and they're not willing to go back. So across Europe, they're investing in cycle infrastructure, public transport infrastructure. The demand for oil is likely to be under more pressure. The pollution that's been going into the seas has been noted, and people are saying, well, why are we doing this? And people are not going to be willing to go back to what we had before. In the northeast, that leaves Aberdeen in a major threat, because whilst we've got plenty of oil and gas in the North Sea, the lifting costs are going to be pretty high compared to the rest of the world. So if it's a price fight, then we're going to lose every time. So the need to diversify our economy has been evident for at least 20 years, but we've been kind of slow and tardy to make that change. But the dilemma for anyone in the oil and gas industry is they don't have time to look outside of their industry to see what they could do. And as people get bored of me saying, to know what to do, it helps to know what can be done.
Sure.
And most people know what can be done. So there's a raft of new technologies emerging across the world. And those technologies are largely being led by the millennial generation.
Yeah.
The gas industry in Aberdeen is not the millennials. It's the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, that when oil started in the 70s and 80s, we were all emerging from university and college, green as the fields of Ireland. We didn't know what we couldn't do, so we did it.
Yeah.
So we did remarkable stuff. When a platform needed to be designed and built, we did it. I mean, my first job in oil was to design and build ROV.
Yeah.
Drill support ROV. We'd never done it before. If you looked at our CV, you say, don't be stupid, you're not getting in here. And what that tells me is that young people are very creative, they're very able if they're given their head and they're given the opportunities. And we were given immense opportunities, and we're forgetting that. And then when youngsters come out of university today, we treat them like idiots. You can't do that. Your CV doesn't do that. HR manager looks at your CV and says, no, get out of here. We want 10 years experience. We had 10 days. So there needs to be a change, and our generation, I think, needs to create opportunities for young folk. We've done very well out of it, and it's time we started giving back again. What are these youngsters to do? Because no one in their right senses is going to move to Aberdeen to set up a company in CleanTech. Why would you?
I know.
I can employ, if I'm based in Glasgow or if I'm based in Paris, I can employ anybody I like from anywhere in the world. So if you're in your 20s to 40s in Aberdeen and you're tied here and you don't want to go away, or you can't leave the district for whatever reason, you're not going to have a job. Well, that's a very real risk that faces you.
But don't you think, David, don't you think there's a huge wealth of entrepreneurial spirit, engineering talent, creativity and innovation that's locked into buildings around the Northeast? Maybe, as you say, that entrepreneurship and creativity and technical talent has been forced into a little bit of a box in a cubicle to look at one thing for many, many years, and has maybe lost a little bit of traction. But we're not short of skills and talent and thinking in this city.
Yes and no. We are short of thinking because the thinking that is required is thinking in the boardroom. And in the boardroom, if you're white male, middle class, 50 to 60, you're not terribly interested in doing anything much new. And you're more concerned about protecting your pension. And you're not allowing the youngsters their head. Because it's, if I'm the managing director and I'm the principal shareholder, I'm giving my pension fund into the hands of youngsters. I'm not going to do that. I'm scared to do that. Now, there are exceptions, but generally, it's the boardroom where the blockages are. there is no shortage of talent, and there's no shortage of perhaps ambition, although I'm not so sure about that. In terms of knowing what to do, they don't know what to do.
Mm.
And it's a fallacy for people to think that engineers and scientists are innately innovative. They're not. Engineers, if you give them a job, will solve it. Doesn't matter what you give them, they'll solve it. Ask them to come up with a solution, and that's where they struggle. And people like myself, we're actually quite innovative, but as for the technical detail, God no, that's for the young boys.
Yeah.
So when I first started in hydrogen and fuel cells back in 2001, I employed youngsters, and I'd come up with a project, and then I'd say to Stuart, okay, Stuart, here's what we've got to build. Can you build it? And he did. So I had a team of young engineers, and it didn't matter what I gave them, they built it. But often when a project came in, they'd look at it, and they'd be at loss as to what to do. And sometimes it's very, very simple things. But not everybody can think in an innovative manner. And my experience of people who talk about innovation, especially those that teach it and try to manage it, are the most admin-bound people you're ever likely to find. Administrators are not innovators. So it's a difference between being able to be a commentator at the tennis and being able to play it. And that's the difference.
Yeah, well put.
We've got so many barriers and constraints. And what I'm keen to try and do is find a mechanism where we can unlock people's imagination. So about 3 or 4 years ago, when the oil industry first hit a crisis, I had premises on George Street. And I put forward a proposal which was basically to allow those people who had been fired a space where they could meet. They could just get together.
Yep.
They could, because when you're long-term unemployed, you've got to get out of the house. If you don't get out of the house, you get into a rut, and it's a downward spiral. The idea was, well, okay, guys, let's find a space where we can meet up. We'll come down 1 or 2 days a week. Everyone comes at different times. And then we can shoot the breeze. And then somebody's going to come up with an idea and says, well, what about this idea? And then the plan is that whoever's interested in it, they work on the business plan or project just as a hobby. Nothing more than to exercise their brains, go through the exercise, through the process. And who knows, out of the end of it, they might say, actually, guys, we can do this. So they're unemployed anyway. Their minds are fossilizing. So this way, their minds get active. And then if in the outcome we think, oh, well, we could do this, they could actually go and set up the business and they drive it forward. So that was just one of the initiatives. But when you look across the world, all sorts of stuff is beginning to happen. The hydrogen stuff, Aberdeen City actively blocked our efforts for about 10 years. And then when all the money dried up, we put the company into liquidation and stopped doing anything in the hydrogen space. And now it's, all the bandwagon jumpers, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. And we've been totally left behind, which is a little bit annoying. So we put the first hydrogen car on the road in Aberdeen.
When?
We built the 2004.
2004.
Yeah, 2004, 2005. The project ran over 2 years. We put the first wind to hydrogen project in the UK, possibly Europe. We built the first hydrogen house in 2008 in Europe, all based from Aberdeen. And we had a whole string of firsts that we did. But at that time, I got to thinking, well, if we've got electrons or renewable energy, we can add value to those. So instead of just talking about, everybody talks about renewables, but you can only put so much renewables into the grid because the grid can't take it. Half the time we're curtailing wind turbines. So how can we use it? So the first ideas we came up with was ammonia. And then we shared that with Mackey's out at Rothy Norman. And they were pursuing a project on ammonia. Ammonia is used in fertilizers. But the thing about ammonia is we forget industrial history. Ammonia was produced by Norsk Hydro in the 1920s for fertilizers from hydropower. So they had massive alkaline electrolyzers in the 1920s producing ammonia. Ammonia today is produced from natural gas. So the biggest carbon footprint in a farm is fertilizers. So we can beat the hell out of the farmers as much as we like, but if you want to get fed, you got to give them fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get fertilizer, you don't get fed. But then a year ago, we came across a technology, and the thing that I quite like is I'll look at that technology and say, right, I know where we can work that. So we came across a project last year, which was in Tampa, Florida. So this technology, we could produce NO3 directly from electrical power using plasma chemistry. So we've got a professor at Aberdeen University and a doctor. He's in plant physiology, and we've got Dr. Panos, who's an expert in plasma chemistry. And that's just an example where we could eradicate a whole section of hydrocarbons in our economy by adopting new technology. I know for certain that the challenges our guys in Florida are facing in the electronics, our guys up here could solve.
Mm-hmm.
All I need to do is tell them what the operating constraints are, and they'll be able to solve it. Ask the electronics guys in Aberdeen what they can do with their skills. They've got no idea.
Mm.
They don't know about this. They've never heard of it. And it would never occur to them to think that they could use their skills in farming. How can we create the conditions where we can share these projects with everybody?
So that's an example of, we've got the commentators, we've got the coaches, and we've got the players. We've got the idea, we've got some science to back it up, and a vision for what this could contribute to a better, brighter future. Yeah. But you're saying is that the whole community, beyond just the thinkers and doers, it's actually the people who can fund and progress and support that need to be responsive to these new ideas, right?
And the way funding works, and as I say in all my posts, the devil's in the detail. The way funding works is you've got EPSRC and you've got various EIC calls. All of the calls, the priorities are set by somebody sitting in a desk somewhere. And if your project doesn't fit within their call, there is no funding. Mm. And there's no way around it. But even when your project does fit within a call, because we have to get through such an army of administrators, we're totally fucked. So we're sitting on an oxygen radical generator. Oxygen radicals are nature's natural disinfectant. So it's ozone, O2, it's ozone, atomic hydrogen. There's a whole series of oxygen radicals. Apparently, I'm not a chemist, so I've got to be cautious. Now, the difference with ozone has been used as a disinfectant for 100 years. Ozone is produced from oxygen in the air from a plasma arc. And that's how it ionizes the oxygen. This technology uses electrolysis, and it produces the ozone and oxygen radicals directly from the water molecule. And as such, it's solvent in the water molecule. It's all in the water solution. So wherever you apply that, any pathogens, bacterial, viral, fungal, or even protozoa are destroyed. And the speed of the kill even astonished the inventors. So they sent it over to Holland, SGS lab, they tested it, and they were getting 5.9 kill in 5 seconds. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. This device, if you apply it to your hands, will disinfect your hands with water instead of alcohol. That'll save a lot of damage to people's hands that's going on at the moment. If we apply it to a surface, it'll kill any infections on that surface. And we can't get anyone to take an interest. We speak with Shill, Scottish Health Innovations, and they tell us at great length as to why they can't do anything. We've applied to Department of Defence, that's a call, rejected. A call from Scottish Enterprise, rejected. We got calls into Edinburgh University, their COVID centre, spoke to them last week, and not quite sure it's how we're going to fund it. So we're spending hundreds of millions, if not billions, on this pandemic. And a small project like this to actually test the efficacy of a device, we can't get anywhere. So these are the sorts of things that the innovators come up against. And the way things are organized is you only get support if you're part of the establishment. If you're not an establishment figure that says the right things in the right place, which means you're an administrator, you will not get anywhere. But if you're an outspoken, rather non-neurotypical individual, like most mad inventors are, we're all non-neurotypical, you can't get anywhere. So it really is a great struggle. So I'm quite happy to say, well, let's get some neurotypicals who want to do something. I say, well, here's the idea.
Yeah.
And I'll get through with you. And here's how you could achieve it. And let them let them run it. I don't want to run a company. I'm shit at doing it. I help set it up. I can write the business plan. I can write the cash flow forecast. But when it comes to administering it, God no.
Yeah.
There's other people who can do that.
But the facts are we don't give up, do we?
No, foolishly.
We don't give up.
How could we create a So how can we create a forum? The idea of the forum was, if you're a marketing person or a finance person, an admin person, logistics, whatever it is, and you've been fired from the oil and gas industry, who's going to employ you? No one.
Well, I think your employment prospects are reduced and maybe channeled in another direction, but I don't think it's no one.
No, but it's seriously challenged, it's seriously compromised.
Yes.
But there's not enough industry out there to absorb everybody that's going to be shed. In the 2018, we had a talk at Climate Cafe, and at that time, your man from RGU said Aberdeen City had lost 15% of its population.
That's right.
And the reason for that is there wasn't jobs for that 15%. Well, there were working people for that 15%. The same is going to apply. There's not enough jobs out there to absorb everybody. It'll absorb a few. So let's take a couple of engineers who are out there and we say, well, here's an idea. Because if the engineers are working, we've got something for everybody else. But the engineers, when they're working, the way it works is when we set up, we're doing the engineering, we make it, we build it, we install it, and we do the books and we sweep the floor and do all the rest of the stuff. And then we take on an admin assistant. Then we take on a couple of other engineers. And then once we go to them, we need to take on a bookkeeper. And then eventually you take on a few more engineers and then some logistics. So let's find a way where we can say to the engineers, here's the opportunity. Here, you can take this on. Because if you're working, we've got a job for everybody else.
So you have a deep concern and some data which is telling you that there's going to be unemployment ahead. There's going to be resources left wondering what they're going to be doing because they've had their head in a cubicle for 10 years. But if we can get administrative functions, engineering, PR, whatever it might be, all those support all together in some sort of forum to come up with ideas to look at regenerating not only this region, but different industries.
What I would say to that is it's not so much for them to come up with ideas, because it's very difficult for these people to come up with ideas. It's a space where we can throw ideas to them. Right. Because other people will have ideas. The majority of the people, 90% of the people in this sort of forum will be devoid of any idea what to possibly do. Out of the remaining 10%, some of them may have some ideas, But the others, as soon as we flag a technology opportunity to them, say, well, we can make sense of that. And then leave them decide what to do. And we don't want to be too structured. Well, my suggestion is not to be too structured, because what we want to do is create the conditions for a bit of creative anarchy.
Yep.
How can we set up a forum where the beneficiaries are running it for themselves?
Exactly.
I shouldn't have to run it for them. But if they get it, we can help them set it up. We can help come up with the ideas, get them all together. We can facilitate it. We can share the things, and then when project comes up, we can guide them through the process. Yeah. So you've got people who, doesn't matter what business you give to run, they'll run it very well. They could barely tie a shoelace. Why we're not bringing the two together? Now, the interesting thing in this concept, however, most factories, the shop floor is employed by the management. In this setting, the management is employed by the shop floor.
Yeah.
So there's a complete juxtaposition here in the power balance, which I can't help saying has to be attractive to people.
Already late for it. Listen, this has been great. I do want to follow up with you if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll catch up with you again.
Yeah, cheers, Eric.
Good man. Bye-bye.